Okay, so you're listening because you want to get straight to the good stuff, right? Cut through all the reading and really understand what's going on.
Exactly.
Well, today, that's what we're doing. Think of it as skipping the library stacks and getting right into this incredible Iron Age find.
Yeah, we're talking about a necropolis, a burial site discovered in Cruzier-le-Neuf, right in central France.
And it's not just any old site. This is Iron Age.
Mm-hmm. 4th to 3rd century BC, and it's giving us some really intriguing clues about warrior culture back then.
The main source for all this is the work done by INRP.
That's right, the French National Institute for Preventive Archaeological Research. They did the excavation, the analysis, really thorough work.
So what did INRAP actually find? Give us the basics.
Okay, so picture this. An elevated spot, a big quadrangular enclosure, nearly 650 square meters, with a ditch dug around it.
Right, a defined space.
Exactly. And inside, about 100 graves, most of them oriented north to south. Seems pretty organized.
There's a catch, isn't there? Something about the soil.
Yes. The big challenge. The soil there is very acidic. And what that means is, well, basically all the human remains are gone, dissolved.
Wow, no bones, no, like, hair or fabric, usually.
Pretty much nothing organic survived, which makes the things that did survive incredibly important.
The grave goods.
Precisely, funerary offerings, found in almost half the burials. They're our window, really.
And that's our mission for this deep dive, right? To look at these objects, especially these amazing swords from two warrior graves, and figure out what they're telling us.
Exactly. What can these artifacts reveal about the people, their lives, their beliefs?
Okay, let's zoom out a bit first. The cemetery itself. 100 graves.
That feels like a decent number.
It is, yeah. It points to either a fair-sized community nearby or maybe a burial ground used for quite a long time.
And offerings in nearly half.
Suggests burying things with the dead was a common practice, not just for, the super elite. It hints strongly at ideas about an afterlife or needing provisions for some kind of journey. And the timing, 4th to 3rd century BC, that's deep in the Iron Age.
A really pivotal period in Europe. And the location. You mentioned Cruzier-le-Neuf. Think about where that sits on the map.
It's right where territories met, wasn't it? Between the Arverni, the Aedui, and the Biterges tribes.
Exactly. A major crossroads for these big Gallic groups. That just screams significance, doesn't it?
Yeah, it can't just be random.
Probably not. It could have been crucial for trade, maybe a meeting place, perhaps even a contested area. So these cultural influences might have been swirling around.
Which could explain maybe some unique features in the artifacts.
That's the thinking. Keep that sort of potential melting pot idea in mind as we look at the specific finds.
Okay, let's talk finds then. Personal items. Bracelets seem common.
They were. Some are pretty simple, just coiled copper alloy rods, standard stuff maybe.
But others were more elaborate.
Oh yeah. Some had really intricate decorations, these circular patterns called ocelli, like little eyes and long sort of flowing lines. Real artistry.
Ocelli, those eye symbols. You see those elsewhere, don't you?
You do. Across different ancient cultures, even in the Mediterranean. Finding them here is interesting. Does it suggest connections? Shared beliefs? We don't know for sure, but it makes you think.
Protection, maybe? Or status?
Could be any of those. The fact they're personal ornaments buried with people suggests they meant something about identity or standing.
And fibulae, too. The brooches.
Yeah, 18 of those found, though most were in rough shape. Copper alloy or iron, heavily corroded.
But there was one standout.
Ah, yes. One quite special fibula. It had a cabochon that's like a polished, rounded gemstone and also a disc made of silver leaf.
Okay, that sounds fancy. Definitely not standard issue.
Absolutely not. That one piece hints at real craftsmanship, probably access to more valuable materials, maybe trade connections, and yeah, likely belonging to someone of higher status.
Right. Okay, so let's hone in now. The warrior burials. Graves 782 and 990.
This is where it gets really exciting, archaeologically speaking.
Because the swords survived so well.
Incredibly well. Still in their scabbards. Finding iron blades like that protected within metal scabbards after, 2,300 years in acidic soil? That's remarkable preservation.
Almost like a time capsule for their weapons.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
It lets us see the whole package, weapon, and sheath and all the details.
Okay, Grave 782 first. Tell me about that sword. The scabbard sounds amazing.
It really is something. Copper alloy hilt, copper alloy front plate on the scabbard. But it's the decoration. Intricate scrollwork, more of those ocelli eye patterns, and cabochons again, this time with glass inlays. This wasn't just functional, it was a piece of art. a statement piece.
Definitely suggests status, right? More than just a tool for fighting.
Oh, almost certainly. It probably symbolized the warrior's rank, maybe their family, their achievements. And there's another detail here worth pausing on.
What's that?
The decoration includes swastika motifs.
Oh, right. That symbol has a complicated history much later on.
Extremely complicated. But it's vital to remember its ancient origins. In this Iron Age context, centuries before any modern association, it was a common symbol across many cultures.
What might it have meant back then? Sun? Look.
Possibly things like the sun, power, movement, good fortune. We have to see it through their eyes in their time. It's a reminder about context.
That's a really important point. Okay, so the scabbard is elaborate. What about the sword itself?
The blade is iron, relatively short and pointed, and the handle is quite distinctive. It has these sort of antenna-like shapes extending out.
Antenna?
Yeah, that's the term often used. And these antenna bits were decorated with little copper alloy sears. Gives it a very specific look.
Is that style common?
It's a known type from the Iron Age, yeah. Not unique to this find, but it helps place it, perhaps connected to a specific regional style or group.
And didn't X-rays show something hidden?
They did. This is fascinating. X-ray analysis showed decorative inlays on the blade itself, hidden under the corrosion.
What kind of inlays?
A circle and a crescent moon shape, separated by a line. Think about that, embedding designs in the steel itself. Incredible skill.
Wow. Symbols only the owner, or maybe the maker, would know were there. What could they mean?
We can only speculate. Personal protection, astronomical symbols, connection to a deity. It adds another layer of mystery and artistry.
Okay, let's shift to the other warrior burial, grave 990. Its sword was different.
Yes, described as more, let's say, understated compared to 782's elaborate piece.
Less bling, maybe?
Kind of, yeah. The scabbard decoration is simpler, but it still has a really interesting element.
Which is?
A pair of eye spot designs near the top, again with the eye motifs.
That recurring theme. Maybe a protective symbol, like warding off evil.
That's often suggested for eye motifs in ancient contexts. Protection, vigilance, maybe representing a god or an ancestor watching over the warrior. It shows symbolism was still key, even with a less flashy design.
And there was something else found with this sword, something organic.
Well, traces of it. Tiny fragments of textile were actually preserved in the corrosion on the metal of the sword and scabbard.
You mean like from the person's clothes?
Exactly. The fabric they were likely buried in, maybe a shroud or tunic, lay against the metal long enough for its pattern, its very fibers, to become imprinted in the corrosion products as the metal degraded.
Wow, that's incredibly personal, a direct link to the person buried there.
It really is. It's a tiny detail, but it bridges that gap between object and individual. Hints at burial rituals, clothing styles. A powerful little clue.
So taking all this in, what's the overall verdict from the experts from INRP?
Well, they stated quite clearly that these finds, the ornaments, and especially the weapons, are exceptionally well made and have few equivalents in Europe.
High praise indeed. So these aren't just run-of-the-mill finds.
Not at all. It highlights the skill level of the craftspeople in this region during the Iron Age. And the warrior graves, specifically, tell us something about the society.
Like the importance of warriors. Status.
Right. Having these elaborate high-status weapons suggests a distinct warrior class or identity that held significant standing. The craftsmanship points to specialized artisans, a developed economy to support them.
And even without the bones, the grave goods paint a picture.
They really do. What a society chooses to place with its dead speaks volumes about their values, their social structure, maybe their view of the cosmos or the afterlife. These objects offer this powerful, if indirect, glimpse.
Okay, so summing up our deep dive here, this Creuset-Leneuve site gives us a really valuable snapshot. Iron Age burials, amazing metalwork in central France.
Absolutely. And those warrior burials, grave 782 and 990, with those swords, they're the headline act, really.
Yeah.
Exceptionally preserved, uniquely decorated. Big news for archaeologists.
But we shouldn't forget the other stuff either. Those bracelets, that fancy fibula.
Exactly. They flesh out the picture, telling us about personal style, adornment, and potentially revealing layers of symbolic meaning that were important in their lives and presumably in their deaths, too.
Which brings us to that final question, that thing to maybe chew on, given the location, right? That tribal crossroads. And the styles we see, some unique, some maybe shared. What else could further study tell us?
Right.
About how these different groups interacted, about who these specific individuals were. Could these swords, tells stories of alliances or conflicts or maybe people moving between groups.
Those are the million-dollar questions, aren't they? Are we looking at different traditions meeting and mixing? Or distinct groups coexisting? Future analysis, maybe comparing styles more broadly, might shed light on that.
It really makes you think.
And it's a good moment to remember just how much we don't know, how fragile the evidence from the past is. These artifacts that do survive, they're incredibly precious links. Sometimes they're all we have.
A very powerful thought. It underscores why this kind of discovery and this kind of deep dive is so important. Thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Until next time, keep asking those questions about the past.